Brian Stevenson states that there is power in identity. However, this identity must be assigned based on who you think you are and not who someone else says you are. It is only through the individual creation of our own identity that we will ever be able to find power in this identity. Stephen knows a lot about this and the problems that arise when there is a lack of personal identity, since he is a human rights attorney who has worked extensively in the field of injustice and inequality. One of the main ethical issues that arises when talking about race and identity is that so often people's identities are dictated to them through stereotypes. Stevenson was lucky in that his grandmother was a very strong person who knew who she was and was determined to instill this in her many grandchildren and children. Something that really stood out to me was the fact that she let each of her grandkids, and presumably her children, know that each one of them was uniquely special. This makes them feel more confident and able to accomplish more. This is important because when people think society is against them, it starts a difficult cycle, and with people of color we see this played out in a cycle of crime and poverty. Basically, the criminal justice system in our country needs some work in order to change the outcome for people who have gotten caught in this cycle. Society needs to look at the reasons behind this disproportional number of black people in prison and work on the root of the problem that is keeping them in this cycle. He said a quote from his grandmother that really sums up the connection with ethics. "Always do the right thing, even when the right thing is the hard thing." This is where ethics comes into play, since it's not only important to show humanity and passion, but it is also important because we are all connected, and ethical justice for every single person benefits the entire society. The spoken word, "I am not black," had an important message. None of us choose what we look like on the outside, and that certainly does not define who we are on the inside. We aren't born with stereotypical thoughts or behaviors. We are taught this as we grow and conform to the labels that society gives us. I think this applies to situations even beyond race. A soldier losing a limb, a patient requiring a colostomy bag, a person who is paralyzed in a car accident, or just simply the process of aging. These all change how people look at us, and the judgments that they have of us, even though we remain the same person on the inside. And even those people may look at their outward appearance and not feel like that is their identity. I think that it's an important part of human nature to evaluate someone at first glance, and I don't think it's necessarily immoral or unethical behavior. However, it does lead down a path of potentially harmful, explicit, and implicit stereotypes and biases. This first summation of what is in front of us is a natural and evolutionary trait that would be impossible to completely get rid of. The important thing is to be able to analyze our feelings and separate the preconceived notions in order to be open to discovering what is beneath this initial representation. Prejudices, stereotypes, and racism are powerful concepts because they do not only shape the behaviors we see, but also shape the behaviors we can't see. These exaggerated and simplified descriptions of who a large group of people are lead to behaviors and actions that are not fair and most of the time not justified. They have historically set up a power structure and mark a difference between groups of people. Anytime there is this kind of us versus them system, there is bound to be conflict. The conflict is not always something that is outright. It could be a systemic issue, which is hard to identify but serves to keep groups down, and creates a system like Stevenson referred to, where it is hard to break a cycle, and the group conforms to stereotypes because they have no way and no power to change their disadvantaged status. I feel like we're seeing this in this country a lot because issues are being talked about on both sides through powerful and influential people, especially in politics. This is not a bad thing because it has brought the conversation into the public eye and now incorporates people from all walks of life, right down to high school and elementary school kids. The ability to have this discourse reach such a wide range of people is a result of the effectiveness of social media and spreading information and giving people a voice. There are a lot of negative things said about social media, but the platform that it gives people to voice their opinions is something that we have not seen before, and it has been an important aspect in the past several years of making real change. There's a lot of social and historical background that goes into racism. It has been so prevalent and built into the system that it will take a lot of work to deconstruct this. I was surprised to hear that Du Bois was talking about the same things we are talking about today in a speech he made in 1897. The main things that bring a group of people together are history, tradition, and a pursuit of common values. This leads people to be classified in certain ways that has resulted in things like racism. The biases that go along with this type of prejudgment could be fatal. However, even the unconscious biases that we have are dangerous. I think this is what leads to the bigger issues of mass incarceration of black men. It is the building up of this system that makes it hard for someone to get a job or keeps us from helping someone out of fear. These subtle prejudices exist and affect attitudes and behaviors. The propensity to label someone as in your group or out of your group is a powerful bias for racism and is the stem of the problem.